Everything changed in a matter of seconds. You know, when the 2026 NFL schedule was officially unveiled, it wasn't just a simple list of dates and opponents for the Indianapolis Colts. Not even close. It was a ticking clock, a definitive, absolutely unyielding timeline for a franchise that is teetering dangerously on the brink. Welcome to NFL Nexus, everyone. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and comment your thoughts below as we get into this. Today, we are staring down the barrel of a season where the margin for error is quite literally zero. We're going to microanalyze the absolute nightmare reality that Indianapolis is facing right now. It's a situation where an entire decade of front office maneuvering will either finally crystallize into playoff glory, or it's going to spectacularly shatter in front of a massive national audience. Okay, let's dive right into this.
I want you to really look at the sheer weight of these words. The sense of urgency has never been higher. Take a second and just let that sink in. This isn't just your standard off-season GM speak where everyone says they want to win. This is a direct, chilling quote from Colts CEO and owner Carly Gordon during her postseason press conference. This is the sword hanging directly over the heads of general manager Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen. Now, if you've followed this team, you know Ballard has famously always liked his guys, right? He builds patiently, he meticulously avoids drastic teardowns in favor of continuity. But this offseason, we saw the exodus of multiple mainstay leaders and key contributors. Changes that were previously thought to be impossible under this famously loyal regime are suddenly a reality. Why? Because their backs are firmly against the wall. The patience has completely run dry. The directive from the very top of the organization is uncompromising. You produce right now or you face the absolute consequences.
And before we meticulously break down the exact terrifying path that lies ahead for this regime, I want to seamlessly remind you, if you crave this kind of deep dive, no fluff, highly cinematic front office analysis, you are in the exact right place. This is NFL Nexus. Subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below what you thought about Carly Gordon's absolute ultimatum. Your support is what allows us to keep pulling back the curtain on the league's most intense dramas. And believe me, the drama brewing in Indianapolis is about to reach an absolute fever pitch.
Which brings us to the first massive hurdle, the brutal 5-week gauntlet, a literal nightmare scenario right out of the gate.
Look, if the Colts regime is fighting for its very life, the schedule makers gave them absolutely zero favors to start the year. In fact, you could argue they handed them one of the most physically and psychologically punishing opening stretches you could possibly engineer in a modern NFL season. Everything, and I mean everything, could completely unravel before the leaves even finished changing color in October. Let's really break down the micro details of this terrifying 5-week slate. Week 1. You open at home against the Baltimore Ravens. That is a punishing, heavy-hitting, intensely physical game right out of the gate to test your chin. But honestly, that's just the appetizer. Week 2, you pack your bags and travel into the deafening roar of Arrowhead Stadium to play the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. The lights are at their absolute brightest, the noise is paralyzing, the pressure is immense. Then, Week 3, you fly back to Indy on short rest to host the defending division champions, the Houston Texans, a divisional rival that knows your personnel intimately, and frankly, they want to bury you. Then, Week 4, the logistics become a complete and utter nightmare. You are flying thousands of miles across the Atlantic Ocean to London to face the Washington Commanders. You're battling severe jet lag, a completely disrupted routine, and you're playing on a foreign field. And if you somehow miraculously survive that transcontinental trip, Week 5, you fly all the way back stateside, completely exhausted, and walk straight into a hostile, bone-crunching road trip against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Guys, this isn't just a football schedule. This is a physical and mental survival test of the absolute highest order.
The crucial point here is fully grasping the caliber of violence the Colts are actually walking into. Let's hyper-detail the looming threat of the Texans and Steelers, the two playoff teams from this early slate. We like to call this the wild card ghost. Just last season, in the 2025 playoffs, these two exact teams met in the wild card round, and the Houston Texans didn't just beat Pittsburgh, they systematically embarrassed them. They completely dismantled them 30-6 on national television. That is the devastating level of firepower and sheer dominance Houston currently possesses right within the Colts' own division. And as for Pittsburgh, do you honestly think they aren't coming into 2026 completely enraged, looking to reestablish their physical dominance after such a humiliating playoff exit? The Colts have to survive both of these exceptionally hungry, violently motivated rosters in their first 5 games alone. It's a terrifying prospect that could completely define their entire year before it even really gets started.
To really understand the gravity of this situation, you have to compare last year to right now. Think about the 2025 season. The Colts enjoyed the 4th easiest start in the entire NFL. They had an absolute cakewalk schedule early on, coasting to an incredibly comfortable 7-1 record.
They felt invincible, right? The narrative was soaring. But what actually happened? The very moment they faced real adversity after a taxing trip to Berlin, they suffered an infamous, spectacular mid-season collapse. Now, look at the 2026 season. There is no cakewalk. There is absolutely no soft landing. There is zero cushion. They are facing a brutal 5-week gauntlet against hardened playoff teams and opponents hungry to bounce back with their starting quarterbacks returning from injury. If this team hasn't fundamentally learned how to fight through early, grueling adversity, they won't even have a 7-1 record to collapse from this time around. They will just be buried and forgotten by Halloween.
And that leads us into our next major factor, the primetime pressure, stepping under the absolute brightest lights.
It's one thing to face a brutal schedule at 1 p.m. on a random Sunday when the rest of the league is playing and the attention is divided across a dozen different games. It is a completely different monster when you are the only game on television and the entire football world is meticulously dissecting your every single move. 0-3. That number right there is the dark cloud hanging over the Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard era when the national spotlight turns on. Over the last 3 seasons, the Colts have essentially been completely shut out of primetime, given just one lowly opportunity per year. And in those massive standalone games, they hold a disastrous 0-win, 3-loss record. They have completely frozen under the brightest lights. But this year, the NFL decided to buy what Indianapolis is selling. They didn't hide them, they put them front and center. This 0-3 record is exactly why this year's primetime schedule isn't just a slot on a calendar, it is a monumental psychological hurdle this team must finally overcome if they want to be taken seriously by anyone.
Let's map out exactly what the NFL handed them to overcome this hurdle. Week 2, a Sunday night football clash on the road at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. It is arguably the absolute hardest, most intimidating environment to win in primetime in the modern NFL. The noise is paralyzing, the atmosphere is suffocating, and the Chiefs simply do not lose at home under the lights. And then, jumping to Week 11, a Thursday night football divisional war in Houston against the Texans, again on the road. A short week, battered and bruised, right in the middle of a grueling season, walking into the defending division champion stadium with potentially everything on the line. The NFL didn't just give them primetime games, they ruthlessly handed them the absolute hardest possible primetime scenarios imaginable.
Now, the human element at the absolute center of this storm is undeniable. The immense weight of this unyielding slate is placed squarely on the shoulders of returning quarterback Daniel Jones. He is attempting a highly scrutinized, do-or-die comeback from a devastating midseason Achilles injury. Look, an Achilles tear isn't just another injury you bounce back from in a few weeks. It drastically alters a player's lower body mechanics, their pocket mobility, and their very confidence when planting their foot to throw under immense pressure. Imagine the grueling, isolating months of rehab Jones endured. The endless physical therapy, all the quiet moments of doubt, only to realize his immediate reward is opening the season against the punishing Ravens, traveling to the Chiefs on Sunday night, and facing the Texans. The physical toll of the rehab is one thing, right? But the psychological burden of having the entire franchise's fate resting on a surgically repaired ankle against this specific schedule, it's cinematic in its tension. It really is.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Let's look at Chris Hewitt's rapid rise, the defensive mastermind stepping out of the shadows.
In every premium documentary, in every intense, high-stakes drama, there's always a glimmer of light, right? A powerful counter-narrative. The one massive bright spot that could actually save this team, specifically the defense, from total collapse is the rapid rise of defensive passing game coordinator and secondary coach Chris Hewitt. If Steichen and Ballard actually survive this gauntlet, it might just be because of the mastermind working tirelessly behind the scenes. 14. That isn't just a number. That is a profound testament to the grueling, relentless grind of an NFL coach. Chris Hewitt spent 14 years behind the scenes in Baltimore, a decade and a half of meticulously building one of the most feared, highly intellectual secondaries in the entire league, eventually earning an associate head coach designation. He ground away in the dark film rooms, developing raw talent to all pros, largely operating completely out of the national spotlight. That was until defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo recognized his elite pedigree and brought him to Indianapolis. Make no mistake, this wasn't just a flash-in-the-pan hire. This was bringing in a seasoned, battle-tested general to completely secure the airspace in Indy.
Let's really unpack the microscopic details of Hewitt's phenomenal year-one performance in Indianapolis. He stepped into the building, and the entire culture of that secondary instantly transformed. Under his shared specialization with Anarumo, the Colts defense forced a takeaway in a staggering, league-leading 15 games. Just think about that consistency, pure aggression,
They absolutely suffocated opposing quarterbacks through complex disguise coverages, holding them to the 10th lowest passer rating in the NFL at just 88.0, and they snagged 14 total interceptions. You really have to linger on that 15-game takeaway streak for a second. That means week in and week out, no matter the opponent, no matter the specific game script, Hewitt's unit was out there flipping the field, stealing possessions, and giving the ball back to the offense. That is the exact kind of elite, hyper-reliable defensive production that can single-handedly keep a team afloat during a brutal 5-week offensive gauntlet like the one they're facing.
And let me tell you, the league has absolutely taken notice of Hewitt's undeniable upward trajectory. Step 1, producing elite undeniable defensive metrics in Indy. Check. Step 2, being officially selected for the highly exclusive NFL Accelerator program down in Orlando. We are talking about an elite, hand-picked pool of just 16 coaches chosen league-wide, placing him shoulder to shoulder with brilliant, high-profile names like Chargers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel and Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. The league has specifically revamped this rigorous program to focus only on senior-level coaches who are genuinely, truly ready to take the reins of a franchise. Which leads directly to Step 3, legitimate head coaching interest. Now, Hewitt's inclusion doesn't mathematically guarantee he'll be a head coach next year, but the writing is clearly on the wall here. He is a rising star in this league, and the Colts desperately, urgently need his star to burn incredibly bright right now.
So what does this all mean for the big picture? We've arrived at the regime's last stand. Survive the storm or face total collapse.
Before we wrap this up, if you want to follow every single twist and turn of this high-stakes, unfolding drama all season long, you've got to support the channel by becoming a channel member today. This directly invites you, our most hardcore fans, into the ultimate insider circle for real NFL front office drama. Channel members get exclusive deep dive analysis that goes way beyond the daily headlines. We track the subtle chess moves, we analyze the loaded press conferences, and we expose the subtle shifts in power that actually dictate the long-term future of franchises exactly like the Colts. Join NFL Nexus today, and let's intensely watch this historic season unfold together.
Zooming out to the macro scale, this isn't just about surviving a bad September. This is about the ultimate survival of an entire era of Colts football that has spanned years of agonizing near misses. These are the absolute, undeniable stakes laid out before us on this slide. On the left, fight through. The Colts firmly band together. Daniel Jones heroically returns to form against all the odds. Chris Hewitt's defense consistently creates vital, game-changing turnovers. They survive the brutal trips to Kansas City and London. They overcome the staggering early adversity. They conquer their primetime demons, and they secure a playoff spot, definitively proving this front office's long-term vision was right all along. Or you have the right side. Fail to adapt. The sheer weight of the gauntlet breaks them physically and mentally. The primetime lights remain blindingly too bright, it triggers yet another infamous mid to late season collapse, and if that tragic scenario plays out, the ominous words of Carly Ursay-Gordon will loudly echo through the empty halls of the facility. A decade of trying to patiently right the ship will end abruptly, resulting in the complete termination of this entire regime.
So, the stage is perfectly, dramatically set. The roster is securely locked. The schedule is violently unyielding, and the clock is officially ticking louder than it ever has in the city of Indianapolis. Will they find a miraculous way to fight through the most brutal, unforgiving gauntlet in the National Football League? Or will the immense, suffocating pressure finally cause the Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen era to completely collapse? The national spotlight is officially on. We'll find out soon enough.